For joining us. I'm here with Chuck Weilgus, the Executive Director of USA Swimming, and Bruce Stratton, the President of USA Swimming. If you guys have compliments about the media services this week, these are the guys you should speak with. Thank you for laughing, Susan. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I would just like to pose a general question to both Bruce and Chuck. You guys have been around the sport for quite some time. We'd just love to hear your comments and thoughts on the growth of the sport and just where we're at in 2012 and kind of where we've seen the sport grow from over the last 12 years.
Well, I think the growth of our sport has been phenomenal the last few years. We currently have about 270,000 athlete members in our sport. I can't tell you where that was 4 or 5 years ago or 8 years ago, but I know that in the last 8 years in particular, the growth of the athlete participating in our sport has been phenomenal, and we couldn't be more pleased with that.
Prior to 2000, we had, with the exception of the Olympic trials, and that was tape delayed, in the Olympic Games, we had no events on television. We had one sponsor, Speedo. We had a corporate donor, ConocoPhillips. We were below the radar. We were a once every 4-year sport, and today that situation is much different. We have athletes that are national and international superstars, highly recognized. It's not just Michael Phelps, numerous athletes. We have 10 sponsors. Our national championships are televised. Pan-Pacific championships, world championships televised each year. The sport is in a very different place today than it was a decade ago.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Brent, you have a question in the back.
Thank you. Brent Rudemeller, Swimming World. I know this is a difficult question, but I think it has to be asked. Chuck, when you looked at the sexual abuse issues that came forward in the recent years, and how it came to a whole national attention and put USA Swimming on the spotlight. Bring us up to date of what was learned during that period, where you've taken USA Swimming now, and just like to hear your comments on that.
Well, I think this whole issue, Brent, is something that is affecting all governing bodies that deal in youth sports, not just Olympic sports, but in all youth activities. To be honest, 5, 6, 10 years ago, a national governing body in Olympic sports didn't really think about this issue. We recognized that it was a societal issue and that it existed anywhere where you have adults and kids, but it wasn't really on our radar screen as something that we had a significant role to play in. And when we got thrown under the spotlight a couple years ago, it really, our first reaction, quite frankly, was the reaction that a lot of, I think, individuals would have. We got defensive, and we wanted to start to make excuses. And we got over that pretty quickly. And USA Swimming as an organization then started to listen and to learn, become educated, and then to change. And where we are today, 2 years later, is in a very different place. We now have what is possibly the most advanced safe sport program for athlete protection in Olympic sports. We have mandated background checks for all of our non-athlete members, which includes all of our coaches. And I think this year, over 30,000 of our non-athlete members have had to go through those background checks. We have mandatory pre-employment screening for coaches at the club level. So even though we're not employing them at USA Swimming, we're mandating these things to our clubs. So the screening piece is very, very important. The second piece, which is perhaps the most important, and I think this is where, as we've kind of joined the societal campaign to address this issue, is in the area of education and raising awareness. And we require all of our non-athlete members to go through a safe sport training program. And we're offering that, we're also offering a safe sport training program that's optional for all of our member athletes and their parents. And so by raising awareness, hopefully that starts to have people become more comfortable and being prepared to report things they see. Our members now are required to report any inappropriate activity that they have firsthand knowledge of. And if that activity is in any way illegal, we're required to report that to the proper authorities. So screening, education, and reporting are kind of the three general pieces, and it's something that other governing bodies are now looking to us to say, well, take us through the process that you went through. And we didn't flip a switch on it. We didn't buy a manual to do this. We're a large membership organization, and we really had to go through a process of an iterative process of working with our membership to develop policies, procedures, and programs. And it's taken us almost 2 years, but the benefit of that is people are vested in it now. They're educated, they're aware, they're doing something about it. I also will point out Susan Westner is on our staff. Susan was a national level swimmer. She is our director of Safe Sport, and for anyone who might have specific questions about details of our Safe Sport program, Susan would be more than happy, I'm sure, right, to talk about it.
All right, we'll go with John up here.
Thank you. John Powers, Boston Globe, for Chuck. One thing that I think that's unique about this week is, for the first time in my memory, all three major Olympic trial sports are all coinciding. At least two of us are out of here after day one to go to gymnastics. Others are in Eugene, will be coming here late. Was there any consultation? I know each sport has its own pregame schedule. Among the NGBs, track, gymnastics, swimming, to work this out? Was the USOC talked about? Or because one thing that does happen is you all get less. This is the first time since 1972. My paper is not at the track trials. This is my 9th swimming trials. I'm out of here after tomorrow. And I just don't know if there's any reason why this happened this year when it hasn't been a problem in the past.
Well, we're glad you're here for a day or two, John. And we recognize the problem. I think as our sport has grown, we've tried to become much more media friendly and take those sort of things into consideration. As we've tried to get more of our events on television, we've learned that we have to accommodate certain considerations in scheduling. But when it comes to our Olympic trials, the decision as to when we have those trials is absolutely in the hands of our technical leaders. And they make that decision based on what they believe is in the best interest of the athletes and their training cycles and programs. And so what we try to do, John, is we try to set our dates as early as we possibly can. And then we can look to diving and track and field and others. Like, these are our dates, so if you want a pancake on top of them, you know, we wish you wouldn't do that. That would help all of us if you didn't do it, but we try to be the first one in line. And that's how we've approached it.
A question from Pat.
Thanks, Pat Forty from Yahoo Sports. With the success of this venue as a trials host, I've heard there's a lot more cities looking with similar venues at wanting to get into this. I heard as many as 16 maybe bidding for 2016. Can you, I guess, kind of talk about that phenomenon, and does it make it harder to select where you want to have them in the future?
This is going to be a very interesting process. You know, I recall back in 2000, we had our trials in the Natatorium in Indianapolis, and on the last night of those trials, I was up on the diving platform just kind of taking in the panoramic view, and we had a full house. The event was being taped to be shown that weekend on NBC in kind of a highlight format. The last event was the men's 1,500 meters. Eric Vent, first American male to go under 15 minutes. And I came down off the platform, and people were talking about it doesn't get any better than this. This is as good as it possibly gets. And gathered with some of the staff the next morning at breakfast and said, this event is busting at the seams. We've got to find a way to take it to a new level. And thankfully, the existence of the of Murtha Pools and their ability to take what is a permanent, has always been a permanent pool, and use it in a temporary situation gave us some flexibility. So we found a partner in Long Beach, put the swim stadium out there, had a little under 10,000 seats. Spectacular event, great setting. We, for the first time, started to see fans beyond the immediate family and grandparents and boyfriends and girlfriends coming to the competition. We started getting sports fans coming to the competition. Again, we felt we needed to go to a bigger venue in 2008, and that's when we made the decision to come to Omaha. We chose Omaha over some other, maybe more nationally known cities, but we felt in Omaha we had the opportunity to be the big show in town. And this is a community that didn't have a professional sports team, that had a real sports culture. We felt this would be their Olympics. They would embrace us. There was also a brand new facility that didn't have a pro sports team as its home. And they were looking to make a name for themselves. So the stars were aligned. We made a decision to return here in 2012 because the 2008 experience was so extraordinary. I'm sorry for this long-winded answer, but it's background that gets you to now to the question of 2016. We have begun that process, and we will go through a request for proposals process and a bidding process this fall that will culminate with a decision that we hope to make next May. And we hope that Omaha will be interested in having us back again. But we felt that if we just awarded the event to Omaha again and did a preemptive deal for 16 like we did for 12, that we would not be serving the best interest of USA Swimming with this enterprise that's evolved. And this has become a multi-million-dollar event. And so we want to go in the marketplace. We think that's the right thing to do for the sport. There's lots of pieces to this. The warm-up pool is going to stay here in Omaha. It's going to move into a facility, and so there's going to be an incredible legacy here. And there's a fire for our sport in Omaha that maybe wasn't there 7 or 8 years ago, and the opportunity perhaps to do that in another city is something that is very exciting to us. There's also many people within our sport, coaches and others, who would like to see the event move around other parts of the country. So it's a decision that'll take place over the next 9 months, but we will go through the bid process, and we do hope that Omaha participates in that.
We have time for one more question. We're going to go with Paul.
That's right. No, I was, how much can you get, I know you probably don't want to go into cities that, have you already heard from cities, Chuck, and at least like a rough number, some that have at least expressed some interest in bidding on this, since it's going to be a fairly quick process?
Somebody has to ask Bruce a question here.
You're doing great.
We have heard from a number of cities. I think Pat mentioned 16, and that actually is the number. We had a information seminar in Colorado Springs a couple of weeks ago, and representatives from those cities all came to Colorado Springs. And what was interesting about that, Paul, is, a decade ago when we were looking for, if we'd be talking about our events, we're talking to swimming people. When we had the representatives from those cities in Colorado Springs, these were Visitor and Convention Bureau people, Mayor's Office people, Chamber of Commerce people, so the business leaders of communities coming. We've said we're not going to publish the list of those cities, but if any of them want to identify themselves, and a few have, but there are cities that everyone would recognize. And I think and many of them will be coming here, sending representatives to this event, to tour the venue, to take in the event. We recommended that to them, that we thought it was very important that they get their feet on the ground here and really touch and feel and see this event up close, because it's not a swim meet anymore. It's a major sporting spectacle.
I'd like to thank Chuck and Bruce for their time. We have Rebecca Sony waiting just outside, so we'll bring her up momentarily. Thank you.